Good evening, everyone. This is a public meeting of the Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals for October 13th, 2011. Tonight, we have all our petitions are under continuances. And I'd like to remind everyone, if you want to speak on behalf of a petition, that you sign in with your name and address before addressing the board. And with that, our first petition is under continuances. It's ZB 2011-31. Petition is a special permit. The applicant is George C. Elides Jr. Property is located at 109 Industrial Ave East. And the petition is to allow the sale of propane for general public use pursuant to section 12.6 of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Elides.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, board members. George C. Elides Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell, for the record. You recall at our last meeting, we went, I think I went over basically most of the principles involved in the type of operation we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. And the board indicated that they had some questions about, especially site locations of things like the tank and dimensions and things like that. And I think Mr. McCarthy also mentioned that he thought we should have a plan drawn to scale, and he was absolutely right. And I talked to the client about that, and he engaged Robert Gill Associates, and Mr. Gill produced the plan for us. Unfortunately, last minute, I got some correspondence on Tuesday. You recall the Tuesday this week. You recall Monday was a holiday, from the DPD, but the fire department forwarding some additional items from the fire department. I think you all have copies of that, if I'm not mistaken. As a result of that, I wanted Mr. Gill to take a look at some of those items and deal with those items as well. So he had to go and make some modifications and adjustments to the plan, which then resulted in my not getting them to you until yesterday, as you know, to DPD, and my understanding is they emailed those items to you. Tonight, I brought you a bigger version because I know a lot of people, I mean, you get an 8.5 on a computer and print it, and it doesn't always give you the greatest amount of detail. So hopefully the larger detail in the package I left with you will be helpful to you. That plan, as I said, lays out the exact location of the tank, the setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. I also recently forwarded my response to some new commentary that we got from DPD since our last hearing, and I'm pretty sure that got forwarded to you because Aaron told me it did. So I don't know if you want me to go over each and every one of those items. I think it's pretty clear to me. The two interesting but really non-relevant issues that were raised, I don't blame them. They want to know exactly what the site is. Those two issues related to some easements. As you can see from the plan, one of them is way in the back right, and it really principally goes through the next door property at Transgas. And the other, if I can give you a little historical thing, was a piece of property that was owned by New Industrial Properties, which was an effort in the 40s and 50s to create new industries and new jobs for Lowell. And I say history because my dad happened to be a director of that, so I just want to let you know that. They gave the property adjacent to my client's property to the city, which included a street, which is now Swan Street. And in Swan Street, the city built water and sewer lines, as they would in any street that is servicing. That's what the other easement that was asked about covers. Has nothing to do with anything that goes on in my client's property. So certainly if anyone has any questions about any of those other issues, I'll be glad to answer them and talk to them about it. Briefly again, I think this is a great project for the city. You recall I talked to the fact that we have no other dealer who fills barbecue tanks or tanks for RVs or tanks for construction equipment or anything in the city of Lowell. In addition to that, we're going to be able to get some new tax revenue, some new employment, hopefully, et cetera. So obviously, I think that it's a win-win situation on that account. Bottom line, and I can't stress this enough, the issue before you, what I'm asking for you is to say that this is a location that is okay for the sale of the product. It's laid out right, it's going to have all the safety things and everything. So that's why we're here for that special permit. With reference to any and all of the fire department stuff, let me just say this. Obviously, we can't even start to operate until the structures and everything are done and built, and they'll be built exactly and accordingly to NAFPA, National Fire Protection Association, things, rules and regulations as the fire department has shown you exist, and any and all city codes, et cetera. So we won't get a license. That facility has to be licensed by the fire department. So until they're satisfied that every dimension, every safety feature, everything is in there and done properly, the place will never be licensed and never run. So that's the security, shall we say, that anybody has with reference to that. I think for the moment, oh, and by the way, those licenses, all facilities like this are inspected yearly by the fire department, and a license is reissued and a fee paid yearly as well. So I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's a great deal. I think we've shown that it can be handled safely. Hopefully you get a better idea. Oh, one other curious thing. If you notice on the plan, if you look a little bit to the right of the installation, that's where Mr. Peters' desk is inside the operation. So I think if he thought it was a real serious danger, I'm not sure that he'd be sitting there with his own desk there. What's going to happen is, and you see on the plan that the parking spaces are set aside for propane. Actually, that entire, what I call, as you're looking at the plan, the entire left-hand side is parking for the benefit of this one particular business, the propane business. We don't need anywhere near that. My own experience is you go to a propane place to fill a tank and you're lucky, you'd be surprised if there's more than one person ahead of you or whatever, but we have plenty of room in there. All of those parking spaces are up to code. The rest of the parking spaces are pre-existing non-conforming parking spaces, and there's like 75 parking spaces for the whole lot. Mr. Peters' business, principally, is dumpsters. People don't come to his place to shop for dumpsters. If they need a dumpster, they call. He rarely has more than one or two cars come in the course of a day. So I've spoken too much already, as usual, but I'll stop at that and say that Mr. Peters and Mr. Toomey from Lorden Fuel and I more than willing to answer any questions. I mean, I understand the public hearing's closed, but I also see my friend over here who's attending as well, and I have a feeling he wants to make some comments, but that's it for me for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leides. I guess I'll start off with just a couple of questions. So based on the new information we received from the NFPA, and I'm sure you received,
I did.
Look through this.
Correct.
So the very first, when they reference table 6.3.1 with the 25-foot separation distance, can you tell me, by looking at this latest plan, how you meet that?
We don't, but that's because our tank only has 800 gallons of liquid fuel in it, and that's one of the exceptions to the NAFPA rule, and I think it's in there. I'm not sure exactly where it's located, but it is an exception.
So it says tanks 500 to 2,000 gallon, right?
Right, capacity. That's
Yep.
a capacity. It's not the actual. I think Mr. Toomey's here, and he will tell you that a 1,000-gallon tank has a capacity of 800 gallons. See, the NAFPA differentiates between gallons and weight and things like that. And once again, Mr. Chairman, if it doesn't meet the requirements of the fire department, they're not going to let us put it in there. They'll make sure that it's 25 feet away, but we're quite certain that it meets that requirement.
Okay, well, I don't know if another board member can address what I'm asking, but I'm going to address it to Aaron. Does that, what Mr. Alighty just said, does that meet the requirements of, they don't have to meet the 25-foot clearance?
Well, I'm certainly not terribly knowledgeable in the NAFPA regulations. Both Joe and myself did review them once we received them from the fire department, and reviewed them once we received the plan. And there is an exception for the certain size that's proposed. I think it's actually the second line item in the handout that was forwarded by the fire department that is the exception for the size. So that does, just from reading the report that we received from the fire department, that does ring true.
Yep, and I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Alighty. If you didn't meet the certain criteria, they would make you meet it.
Oh, sure.
If
No,
you
no,
had to. As far as the enclosure, I guess, so this is going to be a fenced-in, what's the height of the fence?
7 feet.
Okay. Is it
Chain
gonna be
link.
traditional, can you just describe what the fencing would be?
It'll be open chain link, but if the board would like us to put slats, we can do it. But I think it's a more
Okay,
open, the more
So-
open, the more secure we're going to feel knowing what's going on behind the gate.
Chain link, 7 feet, okay,
Note, please, if I may,
yep,
because of these new requirements there, and I'm not sure it really applies, but I said to Mr. Gill, put it in just to be safe. We added another gate door on the right-hand side, the side closest to the building. The code says something about if something's within 3 feet of this, that, or whatever, and it talks about the filling area or whatever, and I said, well, listen, to be safe, let's put in the second door just to make sure there's no problem.
okay, so during off hours, can somebody scale the fence and get in there? Just so I can ask.
Well, I'm not going to say they can't,
Yeah,
but
okay.
yeah, I think it's highly unlikely.
Yeah, and what's the hour of operations plan for this?
Well, I'm not sure, I think 9 to 5, is that?
Well, we're there from
Can you address the board,
What would
please, sir?
identify yourself for the...
Mark Peters, Lindmar Realty, 109 Industrial Ave. We're there from 5, well, basically, we're open from 6 a.m. till 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. We haven't determined weekend hours at this point.
So are you
pending-
envisioning being open 7 days a week?
I'm probably thinking 6 days a week. I mean, initially, I'd probably, providing it's not in violation of any sort of code, or I would probably try 7 days, see how that worked, but I'm thinking probably 6 days a week.
So on Monday through Friday, would it be something like 8 or 9 o'clock, or are you envisioning 6 o'clock in the morning?
I mean, I don't anticipate anybody before 8 o'clock, but we are there at 6 o'clock.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I
again,
think there's a lot of
we-
traffic, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a lot of traffic that, I'll call it, cuts through in the morning, people going off to work.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if there were customers coming in at that particular hour, just because of the traffic flow. If you were having enough customers, I notice you only, not that you only have, but you're positioning 6 cars for parking. That's strictly for filling up, is that correct?
The 6-car side was mostly, to tell you the truth, in case some RV or something came in there. We also have designated parking spaces on the other side. But as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, in actuality, that entire side will be used exclusively, essentially. I mean, I could mark them all, but we're trying to show that in order to put some semblance of order, that's how we're going to mark those spaces. When I say the other side, the industrial avenues.
Mr. Leides, do you have dimensions on the parking?
I'm sorry.
Do you have dimensions for the parking spaces? I mean, you just mentioned like an RV. Obviously, an RV is going to take up a lot more room than...
Well, Mr. Gill told me that these spaces are, I assume, 10 feet wide, because he said it's 50 feet. I didn't put a measure on it. And again, we're using the whole area for, if somebody came in with an RV, I assume they could pull up, and unless there was somebody parked in space number 6 or 7 to the left, we'll get an RV in there.
Well, again, you show propane pickup designated 6-car parking, and then I'll say on the main street, it looks like you're showing additional parking. Is that for the other business?
No.
Okay, so the parking you're showing in front, what is that used for?
Well, essentially, and if you want to make it a condition of an approval,
Yep.
my client be willing to say that entire lot, 20 spaces on that side, would be
Okay.
strictly for the propane
So
usage.
would the plan be, you're going to stripe this and have it all lined up? Is there going to be new striping? Is there going to be any new paving over there?
I'm not sure about new paving, but certainly he's going to have signage and striping for various designated cars, et cetera.
Okay, so speaking about signage, I don't see anything on the plan, but would there be any signage indicating where you're to pull in for filling up? Is there a plan for that? I don't see anything on the current plan.
Not now, because we not sure exactly what that signage will be, and if it exceeds the city regulations, obviously we'll have to come back before the board for a review of signage.
Well, I think I'd like to see some signage that can be worked out if it's approved. I'd like to have a condition with some type of signage. I mean,
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, this is a different type of business,
I-
and I think because of the layout of the current facility, obviously, if somebody's coming down for the first time, they might know it's down in Industrial Ave, but I think it'd be good to have some type of signage just to direct people where they're going. I mean, obviously, somebody could say to me, well, if there's a tank in front, obviously that's where you fill it up, but
Well, if signage, I was thinking signage like XYZ, I don't know what he's gonna name it, propane sales, but if you're talking about access, egress, and parking for this and that, whatever, absolutely, we go for a condition that we place signage that is agreeable with the Department of Planning and Development, of course. And certainly there would be, the only access for this location, if you look at the plan, is Swan Street. So we're not going to mix it at all. The planter is there. The planter was going to be a clear designation of separation of the two, but we decided to cut it back so that there'd be a better flow of pedestrian traffic.
Yep. Okay,
So-
well, I think also as far as the business hours, it'd be nice to get some kind of definition around what the business hours are. I would think at this point there must be some type of idea of potentially what the hours are.
Well, honestly, he and I never had that discussion. If you want to give us a 5-minute break and talk to somebody else, I'll talk to him about it. I'm not sure he really thought about it properly, because I don't know about anyone else. When I buy propane, I buy it on Saturday or Sunday because I'm
I think the
working.
business hours is something that this board does pretty standardly as far as
Can you
requesting.
give me 5 minutes to
Sure.
have that conversation with him?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Didn't even need 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman. 9 to 5, 7 days a week is how he'd like to start. And as I said, bearing in mind that most people filling their barbecues and whatever are going to be trying to do that on Saturdays and Sundays. There'll be no other businesses that I know of in that area that'll be open on Saturdays and
I
Sundays.
know it's a new business, but again, I just want to stress, that's a standard question that the board does ask about
Sure.
the business operations,
So-
hours operation.
Believe me, a
Yep.
legitimate question that I forgot to answer, and I apologize for that.
Another question I'd have is, let's say the business is up and running and things are going great. How long does it take for the propane tank to run empty?
I'll ask Jeremy, but I'm going to say
Yeah.
a long time, I think. What is the typical?
It really depends on what size cylinder.
Well, no, the typical barbecue cylinder.
4.5 gallons.
Yeah, the typical barbecue cylinder is 4.5 gallons. We're talking about.
Okay, no, I'm talking about the actual tank that you're putting in.
No, I know.
What I'm leading up to is, how often would there be deliveries to refill the propane? When would the delivery truck be coming in? How often would that be?
He says every 2 weeks is the norm.
Every 2 weeks? And would the delivery truck be coming in during normal business hours, or would it be coming in off hours?
Normal business hours.
Okay. So approximately every 2 weeks, truck delivery comes in, okay. All right. And would they more than likely be coming off of the connector and coming down industrial? Okay,
I would think so.
yeah. So the likelihood of going down Swan Street is, should be,
Negligible.
yep,
Negligible. In fact, if you wanted to make it a condition that it didn't go on Swan Street other than to enter the particular premises, we'd have no problem with that.
yep.
And by the way, I just asked Mr. Toomey from Lorden how long it takes to fill a tank normally of that size. He said about 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. The color of the tank, what will that be?
The code says it has to be painted. I don't think we've chosen any particular color. If the board, I think normally I see white tanks, but we're open to any suggestions that if anyone feels they want to deal with a
I was
different
just
color.
curious what the color was going to be. My understanding, they should be colored. I don't know if it'd be white or gray.
Everyone I see, I think, is white, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, so you're talking 9 to 5, 7 days a week, and would there be just normally one employee that would be handling,
I think so. Okay. At least to start. And
okay. And as far as being certified to handle that type of business,
absolutely.
that'll be all taken care of?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to, I'll probably have a couple more questions, but I'm going to give a couple of the board members an opportunity to speak. Kevin, do you have anything at this point you'd like to talk about?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. No, you covered most of, I guess, what I had in mind. A couple things that I just wanted to clarify. Reading the NFPA, it was just, I read about overhead electrical wires in a vertical plane. I drove there, I didn't even notice it, and I didn't have this at the time when I was there to even remember that, but I assume there's no, I know there was an electrical panel
There's
behind
a
the
wire.
proposed
There's a
area.
wire there, and I asked Mr. Gill about it. He said it's a telephone wire.
Okay,
That's the only overhead wire.
okay. Yeah, I think it was 600 volts or something is what the NFPA said.
Right.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that. Otherwise, if we're going to sell propane anywhere in the city, Industrial Ave would be a reasonable place to have it. So other than that, I don't have any real issues with it. Thank you.
Kevin, Gary?
Just one quick note through you, Mr. Chairman. As it relates to the NFPA, the standards for fire suppression, could you just, I don't know if it's for Mr. Toomey, is it going to be a dry system with propane?
You know, I don't know if he heard it, Mr. Perrin. Maybe you could repeat, because
I'm just curious on a fire safety standpoint under the NFPA for suppression.
Yes. Jeremy Toomey, 193 Winding Pond Road, Londonderry, New Hampshire. Yes, it will be a dry system with, the requirement is fire extinguishers that are rated for that system. I believe they're, and I'm not great at fire extinguishers, but I think they're AB fire extinguishers. So those will have to be placed near the pumping station as a fire suppression system.
So there'll be just the standalone fire extinguisher by code, but there'll be no ancillary fire suppression dry system above?
No, unless
It's not-
that's something that's a requirement of the board.
Well, no, it's not a requirement of the board. I know of a couple of similar business situations that have both the standalone fire extinguisher and they have the heightened dry chemical suppression system above the unit. I was just kind of curious in which way you were going. They both meet the code.
Yeah,
certainly
like our
within-
plant in Air Mass, we have both.
Yeah.
But that's because we had the resources and it was easy for us to install that. And it's actually at a separate location. It's a storage unit that's usually set off to the side in some way, so that would mean that Mark would have to add an ancillary building if he wanted to put that.
No, I do know of one site that has the suppression system, dry chemical suppression system above. I was just kind of curious in which way he was going. Both meet the standard on an NFPA, and I'm very familiar with that, so I was just wanted to clarify in which direction you were going, and you were gonna, obviously, the fire department will dictate the ample amount of extinguishers needed, so.
Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Gary. Fesner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern is the fire safety. Did I hear that you addressed that by saying that the facility will be reviewed by the fire department and will be giving license and annually revisit that issues?
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Corey?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Leides, I understand your presentation that, this board is here to strictly just allow the sale of propane gas. I understand that, and you made it clear that it's up to the fire department to make sure the code, everything is up to code in that location, and that, I think, relieves us board members, for the sake of the neighborhood, that is. So I think certainly, there's something like this is going to happen in the city. This is a place for it. I mean, there's similar businesses nearby. I think your client's doing everything right here in this position, but, there are some abutters here. I do want to hear their input, see if they have any concerns, but the concerns I did have, the chairman focused on and answered for me, so again, I'd like to hear the abutters, and I'll comment further. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Corey. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a couple questions. The first one I'd like to ask is the type of vehicle or truck that's going to be filling the tank. What kind of truck is that? Is that a typical 53-foot tractor trailer?
No, this would be a smaller, what they call a bobtail. The length of the truck is about 15 feet by 5 feet wide, and has a similar propane tank that's a horizontal tank on the back of the truck. So it'd be a lot smaller than a tractor trailer.
And so you expect you'd be backing that in off of Swan Street into the parking spaces?
I don't think there would be a need for us to back it in. I think
Back-
we could just drive right into the parking space, entering not on Swan Street, but the other road. I believe that's is that Industrial Ave there?
Industrial Ave.
Yes. So we would pull in right through there.
Okay. There seem to be a couple of dimensional issues here. The first one is the parking spaces adjacent to the planter don't seem to have adequate access for backing out of the space, and we're in such close proximity to the bollards, chain link fence, and the tank. I don't think we should be looking at spaces that are going to be compromised as far as backing out of them. So I think the two spaces adjacent to the planter are problematic. You seem to have plenty of other places to do parking.
Right. Mr. Gill put those in because he thought that, first of all, my understanding is this is more in the nature of a sales and we're only required 2 spaces. I said, he put them in without my discussing that it was just going to be that space, but as far as I'm concerned, as I said a little while ago, Mr. McCarthy, the board can designate that entire left-hand lot be exclusively for the propane business.
That's fine, but I just think we want to not have spaces that are going to be problematic for the location. It's great.
Oh, we'll remove, I agree with you. I think we'll clearly remove it from that location, so there is no problem with backing up and turning around. So I certainly would be willing to make that adjustment to the plan.
Great.
Satisfactory to the folks at DPD.
The other issue that I see with this layout is that you're having a retail, not that it's a significant retail kind of piece, but you're using the curb cut that's on the corner to access the parking area that's going to be where vehicles are coming and going. If it's just employee parking, that's one thing, but you've got people coming and going on a curb cut on a corner of a street, which is problematic from a traffic flow standpoint, typically. So I don't know if that can be improved.
it's there now, not that that means, not that that's meaningful. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think with signage, hopefully, we can solve that problem. I don't know. That's your business, Mr. McCarthy. You have more expertise at that than I do. But I mean, if I thought we could move the opening up one way or another, but I was trying to avoid staying away from Swan Street as much as possible.
Well, I just feel that if you slid that off the corner, it would be less problematic for people turning at that corner. If you've got someone turning into that parking lot, it's a rather difficult turn from Industrial Drive to begin with, but, you know, it's almost like a three-point turn. The other question or issue that I saw was the gate that you added that goes out to the parking lot is not protected. So you basically have pavement that's used for vehicle maneuvering adjacent to the gate. Maybe that gate should be in the, I guess would be like the northeast corner of the fenced area. I understand you had two gates to the,
Right.
You added one that, I think the one entering directly into the parking lot's too congested. I think it should be eliminated and relocated to the northeast corner,
Okay.
if that's acceptable.
You mean the parking lot corner, shall we say, or the main parking lot corner?
The gate to the fenced-in area for the propane tank enters directly into the parking lot.
Right.
And it's not really a protected area. You don't have a sidewalk or anything demarcated. It just goes right out to the pavement.
It's a good suggestion. I'm certainly amenable as moving that to that location if that were the board's wishes. I mean, we have plenty of room to do it, and I
You
understand what
sure
you're
do.
saying from
Yeah.
a traffic and pedestrian
Just
standpoint.
makes sense. Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Yeah, I think, Mr. Lighty, some of the comments from the board, and Dennis was talking about the parking, which is, I was kind of talking about at the beginning there, and he makes a good point about, and I was just thinking as he was talking, you know, if you got people pulling in, throwing tanks in their cars, and then they're trying to back up, and it does seem to be kind of tight there, and with people driving around with tanks. Now, one can argue about whether, you know, people are banging into one another and there's going to be explosions. I'm not going down that road. That's not where I'm going with. But just based on what was presented to us when I was looking at this, I was just trying to figure out, you know, does the parking, is it conducive to, obviously, if the business is successful, I'm sure there's going to be, could be quite a few people in there at one time. It might come in peaks and valleys. So I was kind of looking at this parking plan and just trying to ensure that, you know, is it reasonable? You made it mention about you only need 2 spaces for a retail business. Well, yeah, this is retail, but I look at this as kind of a unique business, and I think you've stated that anyways, that it's unique. So I would like to make sure that the parking dimensions are adequate. And Aaron, is there any, as far as what was presented tonight with us on the parking, is there anything that you would like to comment on, or any suggestions that, again, I don't have any dimensions to look at for the parking here, so even if Mr. Lighties was only talking about he needed 2 spots, you know, what's the regulations that we would need based on, obviously, we could have different sized vehicles pulling in there. Do you have any comments in regards to that?
Sure, there's a couple of things, and the comments that Joe and the department provided relative to the parking lot and looking for some dimensions had more to do with access and circulation for both customers and the delivery truck. First of all, it's good to hear that the delivery truck would be coming off Industrial Ave because of on that side of the lot where the parking is shown there, there's actually some space for it to turn around and do some 3-point turns without doing that in the street if it was coming off Swan Ave. The only way that the truck could get out of the site is to back out into the street. So that was one of the reasons we wanted to see how this would lay out as far as deliveries. So that works. To answer your question about dimensions or required dimensions for parking spaces, the drive aisle for perpendicular parking spaces is 22 feet, the minimum drive aisle. So if you're looking at the left side of the plan for the parking area that's at the corner of Swan and Industrial, that aisle per our code, would need to be 22 feet wide to allow for cars to pull in and out safely. And that accounts for a 9-foot wide and 18-foot long parking space. So that's the dimensions. And that should provide enough for safe circulation on site. The points that Mr. McCarthy brought up relative to access and egress to the site at an intersection, you don't want to have curb cuts or access at an intersection. It's not a safe place because you have cars taking rights and lefts and going through an intersection already. Now with cars coming out and entering a site, it complicates that. The fact that there will be a retail use, there'll be customers, you're going to see a much higher traffic generation due to this new use, whereas there's, as Mr. Light has pointed out, no current customers coming to the site. It's mostly just employees. Now you're adding a higher level of traffic coming to the site, so that I think that becomes a concern. So there's some things you could do. You could close off that access off of Swan and relocate the planter, and you could bring all traffic off of Industrial Ave. It adds a little bit more circulation on the site, but it makes that intersection a lot more safe. That's certainly one option that could be done. And then, again, the other point that Mr. McCarthy had made about the dimensions on the right side of the parking lot, it's hard to tell whether or not there's enough room for a car to back out of the space safely. There may be, I haven't had a chance to measure it yet.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking too, so when you're talking about the left-hand side, you're talking about Swan Street, are you suggesting or are you implying that you wouldn't have any egress or access from Swan Street? Is
Well,
what you
that's
said?
one potential solution. I think it's at one end of the spectrum. One other, I think, a smaller solution to that would be to close the curb opening so that it's aligned with the parking stall. So you're closing it so that the curb opening and access to that parking lot is at least 15 to 20 feet further away from the intersection. It's still closer to the intersection that we would like in terms of transportation standards, but at least it's not in the center of the intersection. And then that will improve the safety of turning in and out. But it's still closer than what we would typically like to see. So those are two options on both ends of the spectrum.
So obviously, there are some options that the city could work with the petitioner on as far as the parking goes.
I'm certainly willing to work with them to make this thing work.
Oh, yeah.
But my only sense is, well, it's obviously up to the board how they wish to proceed, but I'll make it clear, perfectly clear, that my client is willing to do anything reasonable to accommodate the city's concerns about parking and turning around.
Right, and I think this board's trying to be reasonable. I'm not trying to
Oh, no, I didn't.
set up anything here.
Please.
I think you have
Please.
opportunities here.
I told you that. I think I said at the last meeting, Mrs. Eliades has told me that I shouldn't be disagreeable at any point, Mr. Bailey. So I'm trying to, notwithstanding the fact that I think there might be a little nitpicking going on here, we're willing to, I wish, for my client's sake, that he was going to have 5 or 10 cars coming in at a time. I don't see that happening. My experience is when I go to get propane, there's nobody else around, but that's just me. So, but yes, if you want to make it a condition that we sit down, obviously, with the DPD people. I meet with Aaron and Joe all the time and come up with a good parking solution and traffic turnaround solution. We're certainly more than willing to abide by that.
And I can only go on with I'm being presented with the plans that were put in front of me, so I have to base certain observations on what was presented, Mr. Leidy. So
I understand that.
I'm not trying to, belabor the point. It's
No,
just-
but you know what? I would have appreciated hearing some of these comments. I get things flashed back periodically in a matter of 5 minutes when there's a problem, but I never heard anything until Tuesday about any of this stuff, so,
I appreciate that.
yeah.
On the enclosure, the 7-foot fence that we're going to put up, is there going to be any type of, what do I want to call it? Any type of billboard, or not a billboard, any notification about the tank itself?
Absolutely. It's specified in the code.
Okay.
And I have a picture of another site if you'd like to see it, but it's a very clear diamond like you see on a truck when there's that kind of thing and whatever. Again,
Something
that's-
else I think I had read, maybe it came from the city, but I was thinking about this anyways. We didn't request a landscaping plan per se, but I think there was some commentary around, visual, try to dress it up as best as possible, and.
That's why we put the
visual
grass and the
impact.
tree. There are locations, there are tree sightings and grass locations, but again, I think I said
Well, I
previously.
think that would lend it, especially on a corner like that, I think a little bit of landscaping or the visual would actually make it.
We
look
we
pretty.
don't have the prettiest site in the world, we know that.
It's okay. Okay,
is what
and
it
then the other gentleman, when I had asked about the truck delivery every 2 weeks, he also mentioned it's only a 15-foot truck. I'm assuming the delivery truck makes its delivery and probably would leave the premises right away. They're not sitting around and
No,
hanging around, okay?
no. Boss wouldn't stand for it,
Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman.
One question, Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Leides. Now, this planter that's located directly right in front of the propane tank, that basically essentially subdivides the parking lot, I don't understand the purpose of it. Why, is that recommended by DPD, or it just doesn't make sense to me to be? Because it would eliminate Dennis's concern, and he has a good one about those 2 spots. I don't understand the purpose of that, so maybe you have an explanation.
Funny you should mention that, Mr. Belanger, because I asked my client the very same thing, and I don't know whether he's a flower man or he has a particular need for it, but I think I'd take it out and make the whole flow situation a lot better. Are you willing to do that?
Yeah, I mean, you want the history on that?
No, I don't want any history. Are you willing to remove it?
Sure, yeah.
Sure. And that.
I'm only one vote, but I think it serves no purpose. There's no landscaping going on. It's just a barrier which could cause, we're dealing with a potentially hazardous substance here. Let's make few barriers the better, I think. It's my philosophy, so. And that would eliminate Dennis's concern. But I'm only one vote, like to see, weigh in on the other board members, but I'd like to see it removed. I don't see a purpose for it, any advantage whatsoever.
I agree. So we will remove it as part of the new work we do with the DPD people on traffic flow and parking. Makes sense.
Okay, that's all I have at this point. Do you have anything else you want to add, Mr. Leides?
No, I don't, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
I'm gonna reopen it up to the public, and, okay, which I said I would do at the last meeting anyways. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone here that'd like to speak in opposition? In opposition? Good evening, sir.
Ken Harkins, 110 Bigelow Street. In Article 16, when he put the original one in, he said it's going to create jobs, and later on he said it wouldn't because they used someone who's employed there, so it's a zero growth business as far as jobs. But the other side of the coin, to clarify some confusion, I think I sensed from the chairman, Mark, when they park there, where your employees park?
So
Where the employees
You have to
park.
address us, you can't address them.
I think where they're going to put the tank is where the employees park. And if I remember right, you were asking how much room there would be for a RV to pull in there. I think Mark has a 18-wheeler that parks there on occasion, and I think that'd give, is that correct, Mark?
Sir,
Okay,
you can't.
if that's where it's at.
you ask us the questions, and then I can
Okay,
ask.
well, I wanted Mark to clarify, because if he's got an 18-wheeler, there's plenty of room for the RVs to pull in and park. I believe in fairness. I'm against it, but I believe in fairness on the parking. I'm still against it. I would like to see, if he's going to be keeping empty tanks here, I'd like to make sure that there's some safeguard, because it does accumulate stuff, and they don't remove it as often as they said they would. So I'd like to make sure there's some safeguards on the removal of the empty tanks. And also, just a general traffic flow, because I appreciate making the hours 9 to 5, because it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I can't get out of there on Swan Street because of the traffic going through. And the other is being a CDL driver and having horsed 55-foot buses around. I'm sure that the truck that comes in to resupply the tank would be able to turn around in the area that's designated there. So I like fairness, but I'm against it, and I would like to see the board vote against this, because we got Transgas sitting there, and I've heard nothing on the safety of if anything does happen there, how they're going to notify the hotel across the street or the other, the manufacturing plant kitty corner from them, or the gas company that's sitting there with all those other bombs sitting there. I'd like to hear that a little bit on that safety of that issue, how they're going to notify the people around there, because the one up in Andover was only 400 gallons, and we're talking a bigger one, and they evacuated a huge section when that thing blew off, let the safety valve out. So I'd like to hear those addressed, but I hope you don't give it to them. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Laddies, would you like to, if you could, just respond briefly on Mr. Hines?
10 million homes in America
Yep.
are heated by propane and have tanks right adjacent to their bedroom, their living room, their dining room, or whatever. They get filled by trucks there. That 10 million homes represents, and I get this right out of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Energy, represents what they say is 10% of the homes in the country. So, I mean, and as I said, who better to decide what's safe or not safe than the fire department, NAFPA, and the city codes? That's, I just can't imagine that there's any other safety that's an issue there. Traffic, I don't live on Berkeley or any of those other streets there. I know that generally speaking, that may be at some times of the day a place where people, and probably on a commuter basis, go up and down the street. I live in a street where there's thousands of cars and trucks in the morning and the evening, and I also aware of other industrial places and other businesses that are there too. Traffic, we're in a city. Traffic is traffic. I don't think Industrial Avenue, the whole purpose of that zone in that area was to keep it mostly industrial, and that's what it is. So I don't know what else you'd like me to address from his comments, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Chairman, but...
Well, I think one other comment he made was, I think it was, how are the, I guess I'll call it, tanks that are left off, sitting around, how will they be handled by the operation?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yep, absolutely. Again, first of all, we don't anticipate having any tanks left there or left behind, other than maybe, I remember Mr. Perrin asked the issue of what if there's a bad tank or something, and I think Mr. Toomey said that they're required to hold that on site until they dispose of it. Far be it from me to claim to be a NAFPA expert, but believe me, in the 3 or 4 months I've been working on this project, I've read an awful lot of the regulations, et cetera, that NAFPA puts out with relevance to these things, and there are specific locations and numbers that code provides for that I'm sure our fire department will make sure they follow in terms of any empty tanks that might be around.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. All right. So the public hearing is now closed. Just going to go for last comments from any of the board members. Kevin, do you have anything else you want to add or ask at this point?
Nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
All set?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay. Gary, anything else?
No further comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Vesna?
No more comments. Thank you, sir.
Corey?
Yes, to you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Mr. Harkins for coming out tonight, and I understand your concerns fully, and we hear them loud and clear. And I fortunately must inform you that I appreciate your concern, but I am in support of this. I think it's an added convenience to the Lowell residents, a much-needed convenience where we normally have to travel out of town, like before we had a Lowe's and Target and other things. This is another thing that we can keep city shoppers in the city, and I think that petition is going to do everything right here to ensure the protection of this business and your safety as well, and we're going to ensure that along with the fire department. So I think you're safe. I think the potential is for a far more tragic accident, potentially next door transgas, than this thing could ever inflict on anybody, to be honest with you, and that hasn't had any problems. So I think your neighbor's going to be safe. I think this is a convenience for Lowell residents, and I do support it. I have a few tweaking to do with the plans, but for the most part, I do support the plans, and we count on your feedback in the future as operations, if this does get approved, continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corey. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Corey that I think this is a good use for the site, and I think that Lowell should have a place like this. So I would like to support the use, but I'd just like to mention, by the way, this plan that you presented is not drawn to scale, and there's some errors in the dimensioning of it. And the parking in front of the building doesn't meet the requirements of for perpendicular parking. So there are some errors on this plan. I think you're under 30 feet in that front area for a drive and a parking space, which typically would be 38 feet, 40 feet, 22-foot drive, 18-foot space. So there's some errors here. I don't know if I'm looking at the right, anyway, if we could just try to get things a little more accurate, that's all.
I think, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think we're going to try to do everything to meet today's standards as far as that aspect goes. The entire lot has 75 parking spaces, which are all pre-existing non-conforming, and I think an argument could be made. I'm not making that argument that you go on that basis. I don't want to do that. That's why I said let's wipe the slate clean and do a good measured according to their desires and code.
Just to be clear on my point, Corey mentioned the idea of eliminating the island and having a flow through in the front there. If you have trucks potentially parking in those spaces in the front, they don't fit well, and they could obstruct the drive aisle. So I think we need an accurate plan to show what we have for room to work with and figure out if spaces even belong there. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Leidy's, based on some of the comments, I believe, I'm in favor of the petition, but I think we have, I'll call it a list of conditions here that I've been jotting down here. I'd like to go through and make sure you're in agreement with what
I'm ready to write, Mr. Chairman.
what I have here. And they're not necessarily any order of importance, but I think we talked about a landscaping plan. Now, with that, I think that's something that I'd like you to work with the city on DPD on I'll call it a landscape plan, but I think you and I know what we're talking about there.
Fair enough.
A new parking plan, set of plans around the parking, again, working with DPD, what's the best use that will meet all the needs. Another condition was the National Fire Protection regulations. I just want to ensure that, what we were handed out and what I'm pretty sure you agreed to follow is what we were given.
Absolutely.
I know that would also include the Lowell Fire Department, but I think the NFP regulations are what I want to follow. Another condition, the hours of operation, 9 to 5, Monday through Sunday, I think is what I heard, so 7 days a week.
Correct.
Another thing I have, and I might have brought this up with Aaron or Joe, and I think I asked this at the last meeting, the licensing, do you have to go before the license commission?
No,
Okay.
fire department, strictly
Okay.
fire department.
All right. So I'm not going to have that, because that's something that you would be granted through the Lowell Fire Department, once they do their inspection and everything.
Can't operate, can't
Now,
do anything.
and they also do what, I think you mentioned, they do a yearly review and
Yearly
update?
review
Okay.
and yearly licensing.
Okay. And the last thing I have, and anybody else can jump in if I'm missing something, to Dennis's point, revised set of plans that are to scale. Now, that'll probably tie in with the parking and all the other stuff, but I want to put that in there because I think Dennis makes a very good point on that.
And we'll remove the central planter that.
Yeah, I put
Mr.
that in
Belanger-
under the landscape plan. I put
Right.
includes island, but
Fine.
is there anything else anybody else has that they want to
How about a restriping of parking lot, Mr. Chairman?
Bingo, yes. Yeah, and the restriping, I know I talked about the parking plan, but I would like to, Corey's correct, I think I even had mentioned that, the restriping after it's figured out the parking layout and the dimensions of the parking. Anything else anybody else has?
Restriping and signage.
Signage, yep.
Right.
Yep. Okay, anything else you want to add, Mr. Alighty?
I think that covers it, Mr.
Okay.
Okay,
Chairman.
we have a rather growing list of conditions, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, do you have everything? Okay.
Make a motion to approve with the following conditions. That the petitioner work with planning and development regarding signage on entrance and exits. Petitioner agrees to restripe parking lot once parking plans are revised. Petitioner will submit a revised set of plans to scale, including the removal of planter adjacent to propane tank. Hours of operation are 9 to 5, 7 days a week. The petitioner is to follow all NFPA regulations. Petitioner will work with planning and development on a new revised landscaping plan. And petitioner will work with planning and development on revising a new parking plan.
And can I have a second?
Second the motion.
A roll call?
Mr. Bailey?
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Belanger?
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Ahern?
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Noon?
Approve with condition.
Mr. Perrin?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Alighty, you've been approved with conditions. If you can come up and sign up the latest. Thank you, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for giving up your time and listening to the public on this. I appreciate it, having a chance to participate in government that's
Okay.
open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harkins. Yes.
Can't.
Okay, sir. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lighty.
Okay, our next petition is ZB 2011-37, a petition of special permit under telecommunications. Applicant is Externet Systems, and property is located at 169 Bridge Street. Petition to install a steel standalone pole with telecommunication equipment in the base and antenna located at the top pursuant to section 7.6 of the zoning code. We received communication from Externet. This was addressed to Joe Genowitz. Externet Systems would like to request to be continued to the November 14th, 2011 zoning hearing We are currently pursuing an alternative solution to our proposal and feel we'd be better to serve both the city of Lowell and Exonet. Thank you for your continued patience and support in finding a solution agreeable to both parties. Sincerely, Kali Kaur. So with that, so we're going to move this to the next meeting.
I think the request was for the 14th. So
November, that's 2 meetings, yes.
Meetings, yeah.
Oh, okay. So can I have a motion,
Yep.
Mr.
Make a
Clerk?
motion to continue till November the 14th, 2011.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Bailey?
Continue November 14th.
Mr. Belanger?
Continue.
Mr. Ahern?
Continue.
Mr. Noon?
Continue.
Mr. Perrin?
Continue.
So that matter will be continued November 14th, and there will be no more communication. Next petition is ZB 2011-41, and this is a special permit and variance for signs. The applicant is Barlow Signs. Property is located at 705 Pawtucket Boulevard, and the petition is to remove existing changeable copy sign and replace with an electronic changeable copy sign pursuant to section 6.3 of the zoning ordinance. Is a representative of Barlow Signs here? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members, my name is Fred Pino, 158 Greeley Street in Hudson.
Okay.
I am representing this cause in petition to the sign. It's very much a contentious issue with the owner of the business. Do you want me to read the application out for the record?
Sure, if you can, if you want to tell us, you know, obviously we see the petition in front of us, but if you want to give us some background on what the petitioner wants to do, and I know there's been some communication from the city in regards to the sign, and so whatever you'd like to tell us about it.
Okay. The owner of the business, he really wanted to be here tonight, but he had a family emergency, and it's something he really wants to keep as an open dialogue with the town. You know, he's willing to work with them, but he's asking for a variance for a moving sign and a variance for internal illumination. The proposal is to update an existing internally illuminated sign. So the sign he has now is internally illuminated. And the proposal itself is a reduction in the existing internally illuminated sign. He's willing to make the sign smaller. Granted that, you know, internal illumination is not allowed in that zone. When he bought the business 30 years ago, the sign was in place. It's internally illuminated. It's 30 years old. It's in drastic need of an upgrade. He is willing to concede on a few different levels, from having an affidavit made as far as the running of the sign, the motion of the sign, the hours of operation of the sign, the brightness of the sign. It has a manual dimmer and an electronic dimmer that can control the copy. And if I can read the planning board's statement, which I think you have, their recommendations, they're denying the application, calling it moving and internally illuminated. And granted, the sign right now is internally illuminated. He's willing not to have a moving sign. He'll produce an affidavit saying, we just want the copy to be static message that they'll change frequently with a new message, not scrolling, not flashing. He just wants to change the sign he has now to change messages. And he was really thrown off by the letter of the planning board, you know, because he needs to do something. The signs are proven to increase business. He reached out to us to help him increase business. And this sign really is, with that traffic count, almost 30,000 cars there. And he feels it's just such a necessity for him to, to operate business. And, the section of where his business is located, in the planning board's recommendation, they're saying it's on the Esplanade, but that really doesn't start south of him where the bridge is. I don't know if you're familiar with the site. Across the street, it's all woods all the way up to the water, the water treatment facility or the waterworks. So he really feels, from a traffic standpoint, there's 4 lanes of traffic there. There's a medium, and the state utilizes electronic signs. Their contention saying, they're dangerous and they're distracting to drivers, but, they got them out on highways, even right over the overpasses. The state uses them for safety issues where people are going, the average speed 70 miles an hour. And if you notice that sign, it changes probably 3 times before you get underneath it. And that's constant, that to me is just kind of ironic, because that is really trying to, get your attention while you're focused on operating a vehicle. And the theory behind electronic signs being damaging to people's safety and history, there's really not any case studies or accounts that you can bring to a court, say, look, I'm banning these because it caused accidents, this and that. It's really not documented on a large scale or any scale from my experience, which I've been selling these signs now and working for this company since 1987. And it's a big need from the business standpoint. And he is making the sign smaller. He's even willing to concede the top portion of the sign. Now, he has banners up on his fence. He has Keno banners hanging on the sign. He's willing to concede all of that, and take any kind of advertising medium and just use the sign, the bottom half. He even would almost, he was even throwing around the idea of the top portion of the sign, which right now he has a banner over. He would even concede that top portion to be a non-illuminated sign, where he'd put a dish pan, an aluminum base with some flat cutout letters, something to that level. He's willing to work with the planning board, despite him, it's just such a contentious issue with him, and he really wanted to be here this evening. He brings up the question of just down the road at the university, they got those scrim banners with digital images. They're everywhere. They're on the buildings. They're on the posts. That's marketing. That's advertising to us, to the same degree to what he doesn't even want to do it on that level. I mean, the square footage that's around that university, he asked that question to me, why, and he's not a UMass Lowell, finance, but he's a small business operator who's been there for a long, long time, and he's respected, and he's just in a real tough spot, location-wise. There's no houses around him. So the concept of what we're asking, he's willing to work, and, he feels that the sign itself, and the sign being illuminated now, in theory, he's like, well, why can't I just relamp it and get the thing going, and it'll be brighter and it'll be X amount of square footage, where he's just willing to concede the reader board smaller by 30 square feet almost, and, make the top portion non-illuminated if that's the true issue. He's willing to come up with a compromise on the operational aspect of the sign. It's energy saving more than what's out there, despite, the square footage reduction. Everything about it, has a green aspect. It's good for his business. I have several testimonial letters from existing businesses around the communities, how they increased business. And they, if I got another moment, I was put in charge of the Lowell community as a territory after we sold an electronic sign to 495 Chrysler, put up a nice sign, and a great client of ours came in after, and for Hogan Tire, he wanted to do something similar. And the board denied for whatever the reason, so be it. But, that that first weekend, we called the customer at 495 Chrysler, and we said, how's your sign working out? And he goes, boy, it's amazing. We put an ad on it, and it said, you buy 3 tires, we'll give you the 4th free. And he said 30 people came in one day on that Saturday. And it drew a kind of a crook on a point of contention, from our business standpoint, only because Hogan Tire can't have that competitive edge to someone, with less than a mile down the road, quarter of a mile down the road, and then they said, okay, Fred, you like to go into variances, you're gonna have Lowell, and now, it brings us to this, and I just really would like to work with the customer, the town, the planning board, and meet everybody's needs, with the sign. The owner, like I said, he'd love to voice his concerns and his willingness to work with you guys and the planning board, but I think, what he's saying, he conceded a lot, to where he's at now with the sign, because in theory, and he could probably go off the wall with it, with lighting and all that stuff, and he's willing to strip his banners, he's willing to make the top portion, which is massive, that alone is probably close to 100 square feet. Yep. And, he's willing to make that a non-illuminated sign and just have a changeable message sign that doesn't scroll, that doesn't flash, that the dimming can be monitored and controlled. That's pretty much his claim. Yep. And I'm willing to answer any questions.
When did you say Mr. Watson's owned the business?
He told me he bought that business in the early 80s.
Okay.
And the sign was existing when he bought it.
Yep. So obviously, what the petitioner is trying to do is take an existing sign that he has, which I know the design planner has taken a look at and talks about, it's already exceeds code, current code, but it's, to me, it's a pre-existing structure that's already there, and, given the parking lot area and that corner lot that he has, the sign, I can see how the sign was developed to begin with. And obviously what I'm assuming he's trying to do is he's got kind of an old beat-up sign that he wants to bring back to life. He's willing to do some concessions on this. Now, if we don't give or grant the reader board, what do you envision this sign looking like if we don't do the internal illumination? And I'm not looking for a real long answer. I think you've been pretty explicit about the condition it's in and what he wants to do.
He's got to do something, and he knows it. And he reached out to us.
Yep. Let me ask you this before you go into that: have you had any discussions with the city at all, the design planner at all, in regards to the sign?
I actually talked to Rachel.
Yep.
And she told me right out of the box she doesn't like electronic signs.
Yep.
And I kind of expected the language that came out of it. Is he willing to work with the city? Yeah, sure. I'm sure. But, he's really, he believes in the working capability of that sign talking to his traffic count.
Yep.
I have several testimonial letters. Would you like to see them, just so you can?
No, not really. I don't, unless one of the board members wants. I'm not really
I
interested.
can read them to you one at a time, but I didn't think that was,
Yep.
Now,
in your handout, you show the existing sign, and then I guess I'll call it a proposed sign, and on there it shows a message center, and then it talks about a blood drive coming up. So is the example that you're showing on the proposal the type of message that he would anticipate putting on there?
Well, he reached out to the Chamber of Commerce. He'll reach out to local, causes such as that, and he'd be gladly put anything to support the community on the sign, regardless of what it is.
Is it to be used for, I'll call it, restaurant-type business, or is he going to have something
No,
up there that says, you
No,
know,
he's not gonna,
specials and all this other?
he will not do
business?
any off-premise advertising, if
Yep.
that's what your concern is. He's strictly gonna promote a Patriots game, specials. You know, restaurant-orientated, you know, come on in, we're having a special if the Bruins win. He's gonna use it, you know, lobster dinner, twin lobster dinner. That's gonna be the, you know, the interest of his sign is his business.
Yep.
He will not entertain any off-premise advertising. He just wanted to reach out to the community and say, look, the sign's available for any charitable cause or anything on that type of tone.
So for instance, on the proposal, he shows like the Keno banner up on top there. Is that an actual Keno banner, or is
That's
that?
a banner. He's got banners all over the place. He's got them on the fence around the building. He's got them on the sign. And he, you know, to get this sign, you know, to a point where it's approved and usable and everybody's on board, he's willing to concede all that.
Yep.
You know, and is well and put it on an affidavit, you know. And that's another thing. He wants to get your thoughts so he can put an affidavit together that has terms and anything you want to add to it, you know.
Yep, okay.
I mean,
Do you have anything else you want to add? Because I think I'm going to open it up to the board at this point, if that's okay with you.
as long as I can come back with the owner and he can make his case. I mean, I don't,
Well, are you looking at, would you rather continue this and have the owner come with you the next time?
I kind of would. I mean, he's very passionate about this, and, you know, he's willing, he's got time, he's not in no rush on it, and, you know, it's your time more than anything, but he really wants to strike a middle ground with everybody that has
Okay.
concerns.
Well, I'm going to just open it up to the board, see if there's any comments at this point, and then we'll continue. Kevin, anything?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I honestly don't see a whole concern with this sign. I'm more inclined to electronic signs, that they're more efficient to be able to change and things of that nature. That being said, I wouldn't want a sign out there that looked like a casino that was maybe popping and flashing and, you know, Keno with the bullseye or something around it all day long. So a static sign, or even something that's scrolling lightly, maybe changing every 30 seconds or something along those lines, I don't see an issue with it. I think it's going to clean up the signs that are there now. I used to drive by this site daily, and I know he has a lot of banners on the chain link fence, sponsored by beer companies or what have you. So I think this might be a cleaner, neater way to do it, and still have that changing advertisement that's probably necessary in this type of business. So that being said, I'm in support of the sign. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I must concur with Mr. Ahern. I think the proposal itself to update the particular sign that's been there well into the 80s is very outdated, and the concessions that the owner is bringing forth through you to clean up that banner-like fence property that's turning into an advertisement lot, if you will, I think is be more conducive to have it to a singular spot and a single sign. The banners, I'm not a big fan of banners. The wind catches them, they tear, they're more of a nuisance in my opinion. I am impressed with the thought moving forward with the petitioner allowing, community nonprofits to have messages posted on there. I know this coming weekend we have a big marathon, which is part of a nonprofit. Anything that helps promote nonprofits, in my opinion, is a plus. And he being a businessman in that area, well over 30 years, I think he deserves the chance of looking at it. The letter that we received from the Chamber of Commerce promoting that, again, stamps the approval that he is a businessman in good standing. I agree with my colleague. I think LED lighting is much more efficient. I would suggest, if he is that passionate, and it's unfortunate he's unable to be here tonight, I would like to have him come in, being a businessman in the city over 30 years, and see what his thoughts and views are, and maybe perhaps a continuance might be in order. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Fesner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with Kevin and Gary that the sign that you have there is outdated, and that the new sign certainly going, or hopefully going to improve his business. Also, will clean up the banner that you have there. I also want to echo what Gary said, the willingness on the owner part to allow nonprofit and hopefully the emergencies, police and whatnot, to put that message there. That is a great thing. And I know that you have pointed out a number of concessions on behalf of the owners. For me, I would, more lean toward having the owner come and know exactly what he concede to, whether that be our operations and the other, the other issues there. So I'm in support of this and looking forward to, when we have the owners here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Fesner. Corey.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'm in agreement with my fellow board members. I think, it's a long-standing business. He's been there a long time. He's been reputable. He's done everything right, to my knowledge. And I'm in the industry, and I know how difficult it is. I mean, not just in this industry, but in everything for a small business. And he's just merely looking for an advantage. I don't think he's trying to cause any harm to the neighborhood whatsoever. And I don't think it'd be a detriment to the neighborhood at the same time. So I certainly want to work with him. I want to see something there as well. So I do support it, and I look forward to meeting your client at the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corey. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question about the banners. You said that he has banners up over there right now. Have they been approved? Is that something that's already been granted?
If you look at the picture of the top sign, the face was so deteriorated on the sign that he put a banner to cover it. And it's a non-illuminated banner, because the sign is an opaque banner, so it's not illuminating the Coors Light, J.J. Boomer's, headline.
Yep.
But the banners that he has on his fence, I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming he just threw up banners because he's marketing, because the sign's just not giving him the return on, it's dated. And to be honest, he's very scared to even approach the sign because it's such a big sign, and it's been there for such a long time, and he wasn't sure, he just wasn't sure the feel of how, the best route of upgrading his sign. And the best way, I told him, is, we got to work across the boards on the site itself, the banners, clean up the fence, the sign, just make an appearance so the sign does your marketing, not the property.
I'm sorry, I think I can shed some light on Dennis's concern that, Dennis, if I speak correctly, it's not in a historic district, so basically as far as banners and signage, he's currently free to do what he pleases. So if we were to approve this, we could put a condition where banners and signage are allowed, and then we would have control over it. So I think that might hopefully answers your question. Thank you.
It does. I think it's helpful that he's offering to create a more aesthetically integrated system for signage over there.
Yeah, and getting back to Mr. Ahern's statement about the flashing and the way the sign works, I think in a lot of communities that I see, in my experience, when a community allows electronic signs and there's no real stringent regulations code, you start to run into people flashing. Everybody gets their new toy and they just run it crazily, and it sets a precedent for bad. It hurts us. It hurts the business as a whole, because now the community says that sign is a distraction versus a marketing tool, which it is. And, having whatever the language that we present, in paper or an affidavit, or to document saying, look, we're going to use this sign responsibly. We're going to clean the site up. We're going to monitor the use of the sign by not flashing and scrolling and making it a contentious point with someone who doesn't like it. Because on average, an electronic message center will increase someone's business 15–20%, and that's proven fact. Whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a car lot, they work, and they're a great tool. And in this industry, in this economy, it's one of the few things that, you know, the traffic driving by, that 30,000 cars a day, you know, it's 1.3 persons a car. It equates to over 1 million direct hits right there. That's his customers. That's a customer base. So he's really was so nervous to even bring an electronic sign because of the history. And, you know, you hear stories, certain accounts, certain, you know, and I'm like, well, it's just got to be approached in a way that's...
I think I understand what you're saying. The graphic, though, that's presented is sort of piecemeal. You're just kind of adding things to what's existing, and you're not talking about the whole story. So I think what really needs to be is a sensitivity to the graphics for signage on the site. You know, what exactly is going to be the finished product? Are we going to end up with part of an old sign with new pieces added to it, or are we going to try to reinvent what's there and have a new graphic entirely?
Are you talking about the top portion or the lower half where the message center? Because the message board it's a static changeable sign. So whatever, he can take a picture of a lobster twin dinner and he can put that on a sign, you know, $18.99 special. As far as the top section, I can sit down and say, look, you know, I can give you an affordable, non-illuminated, if that's what you want to look, you know, I didn't want to even, I'm just kind of throwing that out there. I mean, he has an illuminated sign, and in our industry, that's like the golden, you know, illuminated sign. But that electronic sign is so important to him. He's willing to concede the top section and put flat cutout letters on a nice aluminum background that has maybe an indirect light spotlight shining on it, so you don't have the Coors Light banner. And that's something I can probably absolutely put a new design in front of you guys, showing that, you know, along with the concessions.
I think they'd go a long way with incorporating a fresh look. So
Yes.
that we'd have an identity that's a little bit more, you know, everything's incorporated on one element.
Absolutely, and you know, I did propose a whole new sign. Like, I mean, we went, I gave him a gamut of some really nice signs, but you know, it comes to a budget thing too. You know, I mean, it was astronomical, the number, but you know, from where we're at now, I think in reality, his return on a sign, that sign, and especially with a new cleaned up top section, he's still in the ball game of increasing his, you know, it's still gonna hit the mark for him.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
thank you, Dennis. So before I ask for a continuance here, can we move this to the 24th, the next meeting, or do we have to wait till November 14th?
Yeah, we can move this to the 24th. There's only 2 new business items on for that agenda.
Okay, so based on everything that's been said tonight, so the plan would be to have the property owner come in with you to rediscuss the petition again, and so I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, before I do so, now, evidently the board appears to be in support of this. Should he contact Rachel Kisker at DPD and at least try and make an effort to work with something she might be for, or is she simply not open to this, or what do you recommend?
Well, I think Rachel's, I'm gonna speak for Rachel. I'm gonna base on what she gave us for communication, that she's already
Okay.
expressed her position on it,
Right.
so,
I trust your judgment. Make a motion to continue to October the 24th, 2011.
I have a second.
Second.
A roll call.
Mr. Bailey?
Continue October 24th.
Mr. Belanger?
Continue.
Ahern?
Continue.
Mr. Noon?
Continue.
Mr. Perrin?
Continue.
Okay, so that's been continued October 24th. Next matter before us, which looks like I skipped over. It's ZB 2011-38, and the petition is for a special permit and variance under signs. The applicant is Supas, property located at 94 University Avenue, and the petition is to internally illuminate a new overhanging wall sign that does not meet the size requirements pursuant to section 6.3 of the zoning ordinance. And you're here for this one also, right, sir?
Yes. I am.
Okay. If you'd like to tell us about this one, I know, I guess before you get started, this was another one that the city planner went through and came in with some recommendations. And if I recall correctly, you've had a chance to look through those, the proposed changes. So can you tell us where we're at as far as this petition goes, please?
This one, you know, I spoke, I actually met with Rachel, we sat down and talked about this one. Her concern was the first proposal, the awning. She thought it was too tall, in effect, that it blocked the windows, and what my customer wanted to do was block the air conditioning units on his roof. And that was his goal, to try to hide those. And going back and forth, you know, and everything that's there and the square footage that is allowed, we came to a concession of a new design that met the current code. It's an illuminated awning. Do you guys have this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's basically, he wanted to work, you know, and I kind of wanted to work with Rachel too, because I knew, you know, the other job was coming up, and we conceded to a smaller awning. It's still, she actually was kind of, she had some very good points, you know, about the first design. I wasn't thrilled about it when I first, but that's what the owner, you know, you have, it's a lot of people trying to get on the same page. And I think what we finally came as a compromise is a pretty nice looking awning. It does the job, it cleans up the front, it's illuminated. We were gonna concede the blade sign above it if we went with the other awning, because we knew we were exceeding the square footage. But now that we're staying within the confines, the owner of the building and the owner of the business wants to keep the projecting sign off the wall to possibly clean that up in the future. It's an illuminated sign. I mean, he's in a tough spot as well, because 90% of his traffic's foot traffic from the college. And you don't have a good, there's no room for a freestanding sign, of course. So that blade sign on the side of the building really is his only visual impact when someone's sitting in their car looking up at the business, you know, because you can't read the awning unless you're straight on it. So I think in the end, what the final rendition is, it kind of works. You know, it's clean, it's kind of got that North End Boston kind of look.
So I guess one comment I'll make, we have a revised set of, I'll call them plans here, what the new sign will look like. And I noticed that on both of them, they both are, the date that's in there is they both say June 17th on the bottom right-hand side. Is there anywhere that it shows me that these are revised as of a certain date?
You know, I can get you that. That's an oversight on us. They just, you know where there is? Yeah. On this one, this is my copy. May I?
Yep.
The designer actually gave 11. That was the latest revision after we worked on it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this'll, I mean, this is okay with me. I mean, I guess to Aaron, I mean, in the future, if we had something like this, if we were having these signed off of the night of the meeting, would that suffice as far as a revised set of plans and the person signing off and dating it? Would that be?
Yes, as long as
at least down the road.
revision date is correct. We just need something for the record that shows that it.
Yep, yep.
What's
So
being
what
proposed
was,
and approved.
what was presented tonight was, and these are your signatures?
That's our designer in my design department. That's the leader of the design. But I can sign that and date
okay.
it tonight if
Okay,
that's
yeah.
as the latest revision.
Okay. All right. So based on your discussions with Ms. Kisker and with the property owner, it sounds like the new set of plans are okay with both yourself and the property owner, these are the new plans we're
Oh,
gonna go with.
absolutely. They, the property owner, you know, they were conceding a lot on the first set by losing that blade sign
Yeah.
on the wall. And I thought the first plan, you know, even though it's a little, it was kind of over the top, you know, but they were gonna concede that blade sign, so I thought it was kind of a reasonable swap. But in the end, you know, it does work, because the blade sign is just as effective, if not more. You know, it's been up there for a very, very long time. Again, that needs some kind of rehabilitation as
Yep.
well, but it's gonna be on a very small scale.
So Aaron, this new set was attached, I believe, with what was sent to us. Rachel has seen this, and,
Yes, correct. We
Yep.
have had discussions about this, and this is
Okay.
a much improved, and I think what Rachel and the gentleman from Barlow had discussed, this is a huge improvement. So,
okay. No, I just want to make sure that, I have it attached to Rachel's communication to us. I just want to make sure that she's seen this. Okay, anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the board right now. Kevin, any comments, questions?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, is this sign, is it gonna stay like existing flat to the building? It's not,
It projects 24 inches,
it is coming out 24 inches?
Yep.
Okay.
and it's illuminated, so there's a row of fluorescent lamps with that egg crate screening,
Okay.
so birds and whatnot can't get up in it.
Okay, so it's coming out 24 inches. To me, the sign looks a little overbearing on the building. I know it's matching what's there now, but wrapping the whole front, I mean, I know what they're trying to do as far as having the number on the side as far as we deliver and getting some advertisement for that, people coming up and down the road, which I totally understand and am in line with, but I would prefer to see it maybe stay outside the two windows rather than wrap the whole building. How about on the sides? Does it come out 24 inches on the sides as well?
The sides are pre-existing signs.
Okay,
Like, that's what's on the building now.
right,
24, and it wraps the two sides. Now, the sides aren't, because he doesn't have a freestanding sign, the sides of the sign are not, they're not on a street. They're not on frontage. There's no frontage there. So by code, he really can't alter what's there. So what I was just gonna do is just change the faces so it matches the awning
clean it up.
on them.
Today, it doesn't come out 24 inches though on the front of the building.
No, it's about,
Like 8 inches or so.
yeah, it's an 8-inch deep light box,
I mean,
which we'll remove before prior putting up the awning.
I'm not opposed to the sign. It just seems a little bit much for the building itself to wrap the whole building in it. Understanding that you're using the sides of it in a cost-effective way. You know, to have that side illumination, having 2 feet, you probably can't do a whole lot with it on the sides of the awning. You know, unless you left those two sides there and then shrunk, and then shrunk the frontage of the sign down between the two windows, and then you have kind of 3 standalone signs. I don't know how that works in the industry and cost and what have you. But those are really my only comments as far as the, for lack of a better term, gaudiness of having that whole front sign wrapped. You know, I know the business. I ate there a lot in college, going back some time. It's a nice establishment. It is all university students, so I understand that. I'm sure they're looking to increase their delivery business versus their walk-in business. Every university student there knows that it's there and probably eats there daily or regularly. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as it relates to the illumination, are there any proposed hours of illumination?
Willing to bet that sign's on a time clock, and he'll shut it off during business hours or very much thereafter. The establishment is open relatively late, but if you want a condition of illumination after a certain time of night, I'm sure that's not a problem. Just tell me what you'd like to have it, you know. I'm not sure their hours of operation. I know they're open late for the college crowd.
I think, I know they are open for the college crowd. I think they're open until 1 a.m.
Would it be,
My only motion for condition would be that they would be not illuminated longer than 1 hour after closing, whether that's 1 a.m. or midnight. It is a college neighborhood, although several hundred feet back is, starts a residential neighborhood. And with the concerns with, the residents in the university, certainly with the new sign coming in, we don't want that being lit up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning. So I would propose a condition 1 hour after closing, once we determine what the definite hours of closing are. Just as it relates to the side awnings, are those going to be illuminated as well, and it's all going to be LED?
No, the side of the building,
Yeah.
those are pre-existing light boxes that Rachel was pretty insistent that, those don't meet code. And, you can change the faces, but if we remove those boxes to put up awnings that projected 24 inches, it's a whole variance. It's another step. So, the square footage on the awning, the proposed, and slightly it may be, it meets code, the 24 inches, but those side units, those, we did an attempt to try to match the awning, with a face, and those only project probably 8 inches, currently. The sign's in rough shape. The condition, the maintenance of that sign is in, both of them, the projecting sign as well. I was on the roof looking at it, and he's looking at, the awnings are funny because there's maintenance to an awning. People don't really believe that when I say it, but they gotta be cleaned. They gotta be maintained, or they stain very easily, regardless of the fabric. And when dirt gets between the frame and the fabric, it works like sandpaper, and then all of a sudden it rips and tears. And a maintenance contract, I try to sell them with every awning I sell, just because it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be maintained. Those egg crates need to be maintained, because if birds get in there, it's so critical to an awning, because a good intention, we're gonna clean it up, we're gonna put a nice little awning so people have shelter, but, it's great intentions, but in a couple of years, it looks ratty, dirty. Awnings aren't a cure-all. There's maintenance behind them, and that's something I stress to all my customers. I'm not a fan of awnings per se, just because of the maintenance, and people don't know what they're getting into. And this is a very small awning. Some of them are monstrous, across the boards, and, I think a maintenance contract, which I did propose to them, but, again, it's hard to tell someone for the first 4 years when their sign looks great that, long-term maintenance to a sign is going to give you 30 years. Awning typically lasts maintained 10 to 15 years. If it's not maintained and it's in a real caustic environment, the dirt and just the environment in general is hard on it, very hard. So I don't know how they're going to approach it. Chances are, in 5 to 10 years, that awning will need a reskin. It'll need a new cover if they want to maintain a nice look, because it'll look great the first year or two. But if they don't have maintenance in the back of their mind with an awning, it's more than a regular sign. It really is.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. Fesnel?
No comment, sir.
Good. Corey?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I understand, this is a big college street here. I think all the board knows what's going on down there, but there is a little concern with, there is residential across the street. There are units there. They're probably dormitories in the first place, but, I do support it. I think he's doing a good job up there, and this board approved the expansion, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, I want to say, and he's striving, and that's great. But, what I'd like to do is further Mr. Perrin's condition that I think that it should be shut off at closing rather than an hour, because if there's no time, they walk out the door and it's on the rest of the night. So I think the business is open late enough where, we're doing enough to the neighborhood in my mind. So I would the only concern I have is I'd like to further take Mr. Perrin's condition a step further and turn the signage off at closing.
I think that's fair, and, after discussing with the customer, they'll be fine with that. They're in a real pinch just to clean up the facade of that building.
I think I would accomplish that, yes. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the design of the sign. So there's a flat spot on the top of this awning that's roughly a foot deep?
No, the awning is 24 inches, and I gave you my drawing, so I don't have it in front of me. And I believe town code, all copy on awnings have to be on a vertical, on a 90-degree plane. So I think I went up vertically, I think I went 18 inches.
1 foot.
Is it on that one? I think I tried to maximize his advertising space. Is there a spec on that?
1 foot.
Oh, I split it in the middle?
Vertical is 1 foot, and then the radius
Okay,
starts.
so what it is it's not a flat, it's not a shed, it's a dome. It's a dome shape, which is a higher end.
You're coming out 2 feet, though, and you're doing a radius, so that would leave a 1 foot flat spot on the top of the awning, is that right? It seems like a safety issue for snow and ice.
That awning is engineered for quite a snow load. It's taken into account of snow loads and ice, and the structure of the framework that's went into this, there's a lot of liability to that question. And from our standpoint, we would never, ever put an awning. Everything we build is...
But your design shows a flat area on the top.
It's a
and
dome, it's not flat. It curves.
It doesn't radius at 2 feet, it's only 2 feet deep and 2 feet high.
Right.
The whole thing would be a radius if that's the case. Something's wrong with the dimensions here. I'm just pointing that out. The way you've got it drawn, even the side section shows a square. So something's odd
Well,
here.
it shows
You're
it
showing a flat spot.
square, but it shows it's only square on the front part of the dormer.
Whatever.
Yeah, I could give him a shed style, which is I would say a 45-degree angle. Maybe, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but that's something that I can bring that to the table if that helps to...
I just think that what we're looking at isn't what you're going to build, I hope, because you're showing a flat roof, which would be a snow and ice condition potentially for people walking on the sidewalk.
Okay, if I gave you a vertical from the point of the building to the flat spot, gave you an angle, would that help alleviate the concern?
That would eliminate the buildup, hopefully, and solve the issue with safety, yes.
Okay, I can gladly provide you a drawing with their approval and whatnot, because it doesn't really change my process, the quote, or any
Yep.
of that. It's simple aesthetics.
How does the letters SUPAs then work on that angle? Is it going to be fading back on the angle so you're not going to read it quite as dramatically? Is that what you're proposing?
It's a good question. I will bring that height of that dormer down to match the snow and ice load. I understand your concern. I mean, it's something we deal with on every sign, wind load, snow, ice, it's on everything we do, and the liability falls on us. And we install this sign, we own it, from that standpoint. So we over-engineer everything we ever put up just because the owner of the company is very stringent about being sued, a sign falling down, liability. This, because it's over a sidewalk, has even more of a concern. It's actually valid, your concern's valid. I can put together a design that shows the side view in depth and detail, and the framework as well.
I think you want to give us an accurate depiction of what you're
Sure.
building, because I don't think this is it. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. So, to Dennis's point, do you need to rediscuss this with your client at all?
Well, what I'll do is I'll redesign it,
Okay.
and I'll put it in front of you as a board, and I'll give it to the client. I know the client's very flexible. He's at a point now where this has been going on for a while. This has been a few months in the works, and he just wants the layout and the copy and the looks of it, if you're all right with the copy and the print, we will come up with a safer or a more, an awning, because you're right, in 5 to 10 years, if they don't maintain the awning, then you can run into something, coming off the building.
So, Dennis, do you think, do we need a new set of plans to be presented to us, or
Well,
Do we want to condition it with the new set of plans? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the client needs to understand the changes in the graphics, and so I think a new set of plans is important because I'm afraid the client might change something else when he sees what the angle does.
Absolutely. If I could ask for a continuance, I can bring the client
Yep.
with the plans.
Sure, that'd be great.
You know, if that helps, by all means.
Okay, so you're 2 for 2 for continuances.
No, I appreciate all this, actually, you
Okay.
know, it's only helping these guys, so.
Yep, no, I think Dennis brings up very good points, and so I would, Mr. Clerk, like to have a motion for continuance.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to continue to October the 24th, 2011.
Have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Bailey?
Continue to October 24th.
Mr. Belanger?
Continue.
Mr. Ahern?
Continue.
Mr. Nguyen?
Continue.
Mr. Perrin?
Continue.
So, sir, it's been continued October 24th. The expectation is we'll see a new set of plans, and we'll go from there.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
very
your
much.
time tonight, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I know my first customer will be glad to come and talk to you, and he appreciates all your support,
Okay.
so thank you very
Thank you.
much. Have a good evening.
You too. Our next petition is ZB 2011-47, and this is a special permit and variance. The applicant is Harkins Real Estate, Inc., property located at 279 Pawtucket Street. The petition is to reduce an existing building from 3 to 2 units without the required lot area per dwelling unit, and to construct 2 new single-family dwellings pursuant to Section 5.1, 12.1A, 12.1B of the zoning ordinance. We've received a communication from the Flood Law Office. Dear Mr. Bailey, I'm writing to you as attorney for Harkins Real Estate of Lowell, Mass. The above matter is scheduled for a hearing before board on Thursday, October 13, 2011, but unfortunately, the matter is still pending before the planning board with a new hearing. It says scheduled for October 8th. Is the planning board meeting for next Monday, the 17th?
Correct.
Okay. I am hereby requesting a continuance until your meeting on October 24th, 2011, to allow the planning board to act. As you can appreciate, any conditions added by the planning board to our request have to be included in your decision. And respectfully yours, James W. Flood. So, Mr. Clerk, we're going to continue this to October 24th.
I'll make a motion to continue to October the 24th, 2011.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Bailey?
Continue October 24th.
Mr. Belanger?
Continue.
Mr. Ahern?
Continue.
Mr. Nguyen?
Continue.
Mr. Perrin?
Continue.
Okay, that matter's been continued October 24th. That concludes the petitions. Under other business, Mr. Clerk, we have approval of minutes.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman. I assume everybody read the minutes from July 11th, August 8th, and September the 12th. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July the 11th, 2011, August the 8th, 2011, and September the 12th, 2011.
Okay, so before the vote, any comments? Okay, hearing none, do I have a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Bailey?
Approve.
Mr. Belanger?
Approve.
Mr. Ahern?
Approve.
Mr. Nguyen?
Approve.
Mr. Perrin?
Approve.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. Any other matters?
No, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.